Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Hall, and we are joined by special guest Mitch Tischler from NBC Sports Washington. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mitch. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic on this sweet victory Monday. Not too bad for a clown show, going up to New York and solidifying the 22-7 victory. But we can't go on about talking about that game, Mitch, without first talking about the botched play by New York. A quarterback sneak on their own, 5-yard line on third down, 3rd and 9. I thought that was insane. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, how little faith do you have in your offense that you won't run a play from your own 5-yard line and you just want to make a little bit of extra room to punt the ball? I mean,
right.
Listen, if the Giants end up keeping Joe Judge, which it seems like they may, seems like they might not, who knows? Every Washington fan should be super excited about that because you can talk about all the dysfunction that Washington has going. The Giants football side of the operation is as dysfunctional as it gets in the NFL.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's kind of like he was projecting his own like clown show organization onto us for some reason. It's kind of weird. But you being a guy that likes the guys up front, the offensive linemen, the running game, stuff like that. Did it seem like kind of Antonio Gibson looked a little bit like he was hitting his cuts a little bit better yesterday? It seemed like he was a little bit more patient. Do you think that's him growing the position more, or do you think that's just week 18, last game of the season, that just Giants are kind of just packing it in and trying to get out of there?
I think it's a little bit of that. I loved that they wanted to get Gibby to 1,000 yards. Clearly, that was something they had talked about. Brandon Sheriff talked about after the game, and today, how that was one of their goals going into the game. So I kind of love that they did that. I don't know that you can take a ton from a Week 18 performance against a team that has nothing to play for and clearly wasn't putting a strong effort out on the field from the Giants. You can be happy to see him run for $146 and a touchdown and get over that 1,000-yard mark and use it as a building block for the future. At the end of the day, I think Gibson showed a lot this year. I think you saw improvement in the running game from last year this year. The big problem, or the big question, is still going to be that fumbling. And if he's able to put that behind him, you can look at a couple plays from the game on Sunday where he got into traffic and you saw him, put both hands on the ball and really work on that ball protection. But that's something that's going to have to be a concerted effort from him as you move forward, because you can't have a RB1 that has fumbling issues like that. I mean, we've seen it in Washington before and we've seen it elsewhere. You can't have a reliable RB1. You can't hold him the ball in key situations.
Yeah, and speaking of key situations, the Burgundy Zone is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more at www.listenfrederick.com. Now, another player that had a back-to-back kind of milestone with Antonio Gibson having double-digit touchdowns to start his career in 2 separate years, Terry Mclaurin getting to 1,000 yards, being the first wide receiver to do it since 1994 for the Washington football team, organization and franchise altogether. That's huge. But my question to you, Mitch, do you think that Terry's, because I've heard different theories of where Terry could possibly be extended, either this offseason or in the next offseason, because he does have 1 year left on his deal. What do you think happens?
Right now. They got to do it right now. I was saying on our podcast that they released the new name on February 2nd, and on February 17th, you announce a 5-year deal with Terry, and you get everything, you get all that momentum continuing to build. Then you get into March 1st free agency and you start making a couple splashes, whether you go get that quarterback or not, but you just keep that snowball rolling downhill. And I think that's something that Washington really needs to do. I mean, Terry has all the leverage in the world anyway, because he's the best player they have on offense, despite the Pro Bowls and whatnot for some other folks, but he's the best player they have on offense. They're rolling him out with the name rollout. They had him in the 22 sweatshirts. I mean, he's a major part of this franchise moving forward, and the best way to lock that up and just seal the deal and keep that momentum rolling when that new name comes out is a couple weeks later announce the extension and keep this thing going. He's a guy that needs to be here as long as you can keep him. He should be a Washington football team player, or soon to be maybe commander, for life.
Bam.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not agree with anything you just said about that? And speaking of guys like Terry kind of getting re-signed, I know a lot of guys are going that had expiring contracts or they want to re-sign some of those guys. Who are some of those guys they're looking to bring back possibly next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is going to be Terry is clearly number one. I think you got to look at J.D. McKissick. He's just a guy that does so much in your run game. He's a guy that they really need to try and lock up, try and get a deal done with. And Bobby McCain's the other one. I think those are the two guys that you really are looking at as your two most important pieces. Bobby McCain, obviously had a huge game on Sunday. Obviously had the pick six touchdown and the pick to seal the game at the end. But he's really one of those guys that kind of short up the back end there, and especially once they were able to move Landon down into that, Buffalo nickel, just call it a linebacker role that he ultimately ended up playing. Having Kam Curl and Bobby McCain back there were turned into a pretty nice little safety duo, and I'd like to see kind of that continue to move forward.
Yeah, and it was really funny because in the week, obviously John Keim and yourself and JP and others had reported that Bobby McCain was one of the names that this team was looking forward to giving an extension to and re-signing. And everyone was like, why Bobby McCain? And then he comes out with a pick six and 2 interceptions for that game. Well, that's why. There you go. That's probably a good reason. But another player that had a good game, and I thought that honestly really needed that game yesterday, was Jamin Davis. 6 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. That was big on that 4th down to begin the game. Do you think that's huge for Jamin and going into the offseason knowing that he can play to that kind of caliber?
Sure. That 4th down play was nice. You need to have that splash play. It's like when you go play golf and
right, exactly.
On the 18th hole, you rip a drive right down the middle and you're like, hell yeah, I love this sport. It's the best.
Right.
I think you look at that 4th down play and hopefully that's what Jamin takes into the offseason exactly. Is his kind of, motivation and keeps it moving. But, by no means am I writing off Jamin because he can very well be a good outside linebacker, but they didn't draft him to be an outside linebacker. You don't draft an outside linebacker that's not going to go out and get you double-digit sacks, as high as they did in the first round. So, ultimately you hope that he's able to develop into that middle linebacker that they thought he was going to be. But certainly the last couple of weeks, he did a really good job on the outside and, he started to show up on the stat sheet a little bit. And that's, one of the big things earlier in the season. He was on the field, but he was never in the stat book. He was never around the ball. And he just was kind of one of those guys that just kind of floated around in the ether. And I think that, going out there and making a couple plays, especially that 4th down stop, is kind of a nice little springboard into the offseason. So, I think he's got a lot of room to develop. I think, you see the way the defense played better when he was either off the field or at the outside linebacker position. David Mayo the past couple of weeks stepped in a middle linebacker and you saw them be a little bit stronger, a little more stout against the run. I think those are kind of glaring minuses next to Jamin's name, but he's just a rookie. He's got 3 more years on his rookie deal. They have obviously a 5th-year option down the road. There's a lot of time for him to make strides and to become the player that they want him to be. So no one should write him off yet. I just don't think that there's too much you can take away from this season and really, be excited about, hey, this happened here. So hopefully it happens more in the future.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, we're at the off season now, and just like majority of the off seasons here in Washington, it's going to be a chaotic one. It's going to be a lot of noise going around in the off season. Let's put your GM hat on right now. If you were a Mitch Mayhew, would you what's it called? Example A. Would you get another year of Taylor Heineke or a bridge guy, draft a rookie, and go forward with that, or are you going out and going big game hunting for a veteran quarterback and trying to plug and play this guy and see what they can get out of him as far as the playoff berth and going forward?
I mean, I'm going big game hunting. I'm seeing what I can get. I'm going out there with my scope trying to find myself a 12-point buck. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to find one, and I'll adjust after that. But I think what works out well for Washington is, when the league year opens, they can start big game hunting. They can start looking around to see if they can woo Aaron Rodgers or Russ Wilson, or if the Raiders are going to move on from Derek Carr. I mean, who knows, what some of these situations are. And I don't put a whole lot of stock into Russ saying he wants to stay in Seattle now, and Aaron Rodgers is all of a sudden happy in Green Bay. It's easy to say that, early January. You give it a couple weeks when everyone gets to look back on it, and everyone's going to say the right thing as the season ends. But I'm certainly going big game hunting. I have no interest in kind of this middle tier of quarterbacks. maybe Marcus Mariota as the top of the middle tier, but even that doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm certainly not giving up any draft capital for, Mitch Trubisky, Marcus Mariota. I don't even know who the rest of the guys are in that little group, but I'm either going for that top tier, and I think it kind of starts with Aaron Rodgers, Russ Wilson, Derek Carr in that order. Matt Ryan is maybe a step below Derek Carr. Sounds like he wants to stay in Atlanta. Again, we'll see what ends up happening with that. It's super easy to say that now. But if I can't get any of those four guys, then I'm sticking with Taylor Heineke, and I'm drafting a rookie, and I'm letting those two compete in training camp and seeing how things work out. And, I think Taylor showed enough this year to be back in the Burgundy and Gold next year in a hopefully primarily backup position. He's a good backup quarterback. Clearly, we saw his limitations when teams started getting a book on him. But in part of it, the players play for him, man. The players love him. They love going out there with him. And I'm letting him, and whether it's Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Willis, whoever it is, I'm letting those guys compete in training camp and see who's best.
Yeah, and last week, I know you are a big guy lover, just like myself, and Charles Leno, the starting left tackle, got extended for this Washington football team. Can you kind of break down that contract and kind of explain Charles Leno? Because I feel like he was one player that wasn't like shown the admiration that he should be because of how consistent and how good he was on the offensive line this year. And can you say like how good Leno has been this year? And that contract, is it a great contract for both parties?
The contract is, I think it's a good deal. Anytime you can get a left tackle for 13 mil in this day and age, those guys are getting, 16, 17, 18, probably once the new cap up to 20, 20 plus mil.
We're paying Brandon Sheriff $18 million this year, right? So, I mean, just to put
that was a one-time exception,
right?
A two-time exception, I guess, really.
Just to put in perspective of how much his contract is all I'm saying.
What I've said about Charles Leno kind of from the beginning is he's the left tackle version of Morgan Moses. Now, I know Washington fans started to get tired of Morgan at the end because he had a couple false starts and holding penalties and stuff like that. But Charles Leno had the same basic thing happen in Chicago. People didn't, the best ability is availability, right? Correct. One of those things. Charles Leno is one of those guys that plays basically every single game. And in Chicago, they decided they wanted to try and upgrade their line. And, they decided to move on from Leno. That turned out to be Washington's blessing.
Yep. He's
a good left tackle. He's not a great left tackle. He's never going to be top 10, but he's also never going to be bottom 10. So there's a value to having a guy who sits there kind of right in the middle, and you're going to get consistent, solid veteran play from him. You add on top of that John Matsko, who's done an unbelievable job as their O-line coach, gets the most out of everybody. And even further, it allows Sam Cosmi, second round draft pick last year, to stick on the right side. There's no thoughts of him having to flip-flop left, right, depending on if they would have let Leno walk. So it creates a little more consistency on that offensive line. It allows your rookie to really grow into that right tackle role, which is a new role for him since he played mostly left in college. So I think it's a great signing. It's good money for Washington. It's good money for Leno. If he's happy here, that's great. Yep. And you look at that offensive line and they're going to I think they're going to move on from Brandon Sheriff. So there's going to be some questions there at left guard, but you have Wes Schweitzer coming back. You have Sadiq Charles who can develop. You're going to get Eric Flowers back again. So you have a really solid Chase Roullier at center. You have a solid offensive line again. And it's a position that played above their head a little bit this year, but it's something that you don't have to do. You don't have to address a whole lot in the offseason, and let them go after the sexy players. Let them go after, some of those stars on the outside. Some of those guys are going to grab headlines. The Big Uglies played well, and they're going to continue to play well.
Yeah. And sticking with the offseason theme, a lot was made over Twitter about new profile pick gate with Scott Turner, and a lot of the head coaches that were defensive guys got let go today. The Vic Fangios, well, that was Saturday, but Vic Fangio, Brian Flores, Mike Zimmer. Do you expect any coaching changes as far as the staff goes this offseason?
I don't think there will be any major coaching changes. The Scott Turner thing was kind of weird to me. I don't think it was anything, but I think once he posted the picture and started getting the backlash, maybe realized a little bit that the timing wasn't great for it. That was a little strange. I don't really know if I get what he was doing or what the purpose of it all was, but I don't think there are going to be any major changes. I think when you start looking at some of the positional coaches, you might see some changes. I'd look at I think defensive line might be a spot that they make a change. Sam Mills III is the guy there. He and Ron go way back.
I know that there were sorry, Mitch.
Okay.
I know that there was rumors early on that there was not dysfunction, but there was irregularities between coaching on the defensive line and the players. Was there some validity to that?
I think there was some friction there. I think early on, especially early on last year, there was some. I think that it worked itself out, and obviously as the defensive line started playing well last year, like everything else, winning kind of cures all. And I think when you looked at this year, as there was some frustrations, I think some of that tension probably started building up again. I mentioned Sam Mills III in that I think that's where they could potentially go for an upgrade, but he is a Ron Rivera guy.
Right.
The two of them know each other well. Ron knows his dad well. I don't know that change is necessarily going to happen, but I think you're going to look at Jack Del Rio and Scott Turner are both going to be back next year. And I think, the main names and faces that most fans know are going to be the familiar faces roaming the sidelines.
Yeah, and then the tight end position got rocked with injuries this season. Logan Thomas first, and then Ricky Seals-Jones after. John Bates, the rookie, came in. I think the last couple of games has really showcased himself. So my question to you, Mitch, do you think that John Bates in the last stretch of this season kind of solidified himself as capable of being the number 2 tight end next season?
Yeah, I think he was the number 2 tight end this season. So I don't know that a whole lot changed other than you could feel a little more comfortable with him,
right?
Getting a couple catches in the game. I think his role when they drafted him was to be your quote unquote blocking tight end, your number 2 tight end. And the fact that he had those, kind of strong hands and had the ability to go out there and catch footballs made him a little bit versatile. And I think that's one of the things when you look around the league at some of these 2 tight end sets, teams get stuck with their number 2 tight end, who's basically a 6th offensive lineman, and teams don't have to scheme for him, don't have to game plan for him defensively. And it doesn't do a whole lot of good. Just throw a 6th offensive lineman out there. I think the last couple of weeks we saw Bates is able to get out there, run some routes, make some catches, and he'll, kind of establish himself as a guy that the teams will have to pay attention to as we go forward. I think I'm most excited to see what Sammis Reyes is going to be able to bring next year. I was disappointed that he had the hamstring injury in practice on Wednesday and wasn't able to get out there on Sunday. But we know who Logan Thomas is. We know how dominant he can be, especially in the red zone. I think it's only been 1 year, but what John Bates is going to be, and I think you have a big question mark right there at Sammis Reyes, who could be a dynamic, slot type wide receiver, tight end. The new age, I guess for Washington fans, Jordan Reed type player. And I'm excited to see what a year under his belt and understanding football and learning how to play the game can do for him. It's going to be fun to watch next year.
Yeah, and jumping back to Terry Mclaurin in the wide receiver room, obviously again it kind of seems like Terry was kind of hung out to dry again this year with the help on the outside, with going along with him. Not to his fault. Curtis Samuel, they made a move in the offseason to try to get him. Obviously, he wasn't healthy. Do you think they're going to go back into the season with hopefully De'Ami Brown, another year under his belt, can then learn the system more, Curtis Samuel healthy, and Terry, or do you think they're going to make some upgrades at wide receiver?
I just want to start. You asked me earlier about guys they need to re-sign. DeAndre Carter is a guy they need to re-sign. Yeah, he was as good of a kick and punt returner as Washington's had in years.
Yep.
He did yeoman's work stepping in at wide receiver, having back-to-back touchdowns in the middle of the season there. He played really well. I think that's a guy that they definitely need to bring back. Yeah. I think they're going to look to upgrade at wide receiver too. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be the huge name, as much as it would be fun to talk about Calvin Ridley or some of these other guys who might become available. Curtis Samuel is such a question mark, and we've seen what he can do in years past, but based on what happened this season, I don't think you can go into another season, with the situation that they had at wide receiver this year with De'Ami Brown, who stepped in and was able to do a little bit. Dax Milne, Adam Humphries, Cam Sims. There's basically no other threats there. And I think one thing Adam Humphries talked about today was, when you're a wide receiver trying to figure out where you're going to go, you look to see what that quarterback situation looks like. I think it all kind of, builds on itself. It all begets itself. You go get yourself a good quarterback, and not only make the other receivers look good, but also makes the team more attractive to some of these free agent wide receivers, and see what happens. I mean, it'll be interesting to see with Cam Sims what they end up doing with him, because he's another guy that, played well in places, and you can see where he has a real value as an NFL wide receiver. But they need somebody dynamic opposite Terry to take away a little bit of the pressure, a little bit of the double teams.
Absolutely. We need to get some help for Terry Mclaurin in the building. But speaking of one Cam to another, to wrap this up, Mitch, a two-part question, very easy. What's the update on Kam Curl? Coach Rivera talked about how he is like an all-pro type of talent, and obviously he got banged up with that knee. It almost looked like a hyperextension, possible ACL. What's the latest that you've heard on Kam Curl?
Yeah, he talked to us today and said it's just a little sore. No worries about any further damage. So I think it's weight off everyone's back. It wasn't a major injury, but yeah, I mean, Kam Curl is a stud. I don't know that he's ever going to be all pro, Pro Bowl guy, but he's really, really good. And he talked a lot about how much Landon Collins helped him as they were, working towards reading defenses and kind of knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And I think that's, one of the things as you look at what Washington's going to do with Landon this offseason. It's the first time they have an off ramp to kind of really get out of his contract, but he is the grizzled veteran in that room. And he played really, really well when they kind of moved him up into that kind of hybrid linebacker role and, was making plays left and right. But aside from what you see on the field, it's what he does in the meeting room. It's what he does on the practice field. It's what he does with some of these young players. And, you look around and there's real value to a guy who's able to help out the young guys like that. And I think Kam Curl is someone who benefited a lot from being around Landon Collins and can continue to benefit in the future.
Definitely been a leader in that locker room. Now, last one. I know you talked about earlier about Leno getting the contract. It kind of surprised everybody, the timing of it. But I know you talked about Terry needing getting it. You had said on what, I think you said March 17th for them to extend, or February 17th to extend Terry. What if you had to go put money down and the next player who's going to get a contract from Washington, would it be on Terry?
No, I think ultimately they're going to get Terry done. I very much hope they get Terry done this offseason. I think they will. I think that some of these smaller contracts might get done first. I think you might see DeAndre Carter happen pretty relatively quickly for him. I think you'll see J.D. McKissick kind of get figured out pretty quickly. I think Terry's contract might be all but agreed on, but it's going to be strategic in the rollout. I think when you look at kind of this entire offseason, it's going to be about, building momentum going towards next season. And part of that is going to be the strategic name rollout on the second, free agency, combine, draft, preseason. You're going to see kind of big moments along the way to kind of keep that, February 2nd momentum rolling all the way until September and have everything going. So I think they get Terry done. I just think that when it gets announced, it's going to be a strategic announcement, not necessarily deal's done. We locked them up type thing.
I got you, Mitch. I'm all for that, baby. I can't thank you enough, Mitch, for coming on and being able to bless us with your intellect as usual. You can catch Mitch Tischler on NBC Sports Washington and the WFT pod with JP Finley and Pete Haley. Everyone knows them. Thank you so much, Mitch. You were a pleasure, sir. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Hey, guys. We are joined by our other co-host, Mr. Michael Reed. How you doing, sir?
How am I doing? How much time you got, Kyle? I'm doing fantastic. No, dude, miserable. Everybody in the house has had COVID. Everybody's finally doing well. And then, of course, as soon as I'm getting ready to come on here, James starts freaking out. James needs to be fed. He needs his diaper. Lindsay's sick is very sick, very, very bad. And I had to take over all that. And then I'm trying to get this set up. It's just miserable right now. Okay.
I get it.
Sucks.
I get it. We're all going through it. I totally get it. But I wanted to talk about this game yesterday, the 22-7 victory that Washington got, because I know I saw Jamal say on Twitter, Maul Teller, our guy, who I like to call the intellectual, he was like, man, like this game just makes you want to laugh because, the Giants don't really care, but we want to. And it's like, we're only up 6-0. So that was a crazy, crazy game to watch. And then to see Joe Judge talking all that crap, obviously, and then almost going in there kind of pigeonholed when he walked into that game. He just didn't seem like he was there, really. It almost seemed like he was like antisocial in a sense. But I will say I was very impressed with Jonathan Williams. I thought that guy deserved a game beer. So speaking of, let's give out our game beers, guys. Hall, who would be getting your game beer for Washington when they won 22-7 yesterday?
Yeah, it's a guy we just talked about with Mitch Tischler. It's a guy that they've been talking about bringing back this next upcoming season, and it's a guy that throughout the season got progressively better. And I'm gonna go with Bobby McCain. I think that they can get him on a pretty cheap and pretty good, nice deal contract. And like I said, just like with Charles Leno, bringing him back with the secondary, that's like a position where you need a lot of continuity at, a lot of guys that like keep playing together. Just like on the back end and the back four, you need those guys to keep playing together, get familiar with each other. So I think that's definitely going to be a signing, and I definitely think that's a guy that gets a game beer. And again, you get a pick six, how can you not get a game beer?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
absolutely. Especially, it was crazy the timing of everything.
I know.
Yeah, everyone on Twitter was talking about him, saying, why would we extend Bobby McCain, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to tell people, like, dude, when you don't hear his name, that's a good thing, especially coming from a free safety. And he showed that going against Jake Fromm. Who's getting your game beer, Reed?
So I'm gonna stick. I know you stuck at running back, but I'm gonna go a different way at the running back position. I'm gonna go with Antonio Gibson. I mean, you got to give it up to the guy. What a tough season he's had so far with the
21
fumbles.
carries, 146 yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged 7 yards on the ground.
Yep, and you saw it too. That run that got him over the 1,000-yard mark was just so beautiful watching him. He had a linebacker and a defensive end crash into each other, and he just hit that hole. He got into the open field, and then that touchdown run. What a nice way to kind of just rub it in. He'd slow down at about the 10, 5-yard line, just kind of strutted in that way. He knew he wasn't going to get caught. So you got to give it to AG, man. A tough season, and it's only really looking up from here for him.
Yeah, I know I'm going to be cheap here, but my game beer is going to the entire offensive line. They had 12 rushing first downs on the day, which was more than the Giants had altogether. That offensive line went in there with a mission, and they ran the ball down their throats. A lot of respect to Keith Ishmael. He has been gotten clobbered a lot on social media with his play last couple of weeks, but they came in here, they had an agenda, they went in. Eric Flowers destroyed Leonard Williams at one point. I watched that. That was absolutely beautiful. Charles Leno, Eric Flowers, Keith Ishmael, Brandon Sheriff, Sam Cosme, you guys deserve game beers. You are absolutely amazing. You had 226 rushing yards on the ground and 12 rushing first downs. Absolutely enjoy your game beer.
And there's nothing you love more than seeing somebody like Eric Flowers going up against his former team, the team that gave up on him, granted, because he was playing out of position, but just going out there and just alpha dogging him, just showing him why he's such a Hulk beast, man.
It's so true, man. It's so true. But now I wanted to get your opinions on Joe Judge, and because I'm not sure if you guys saw this on Twitter, but apparently Ron Rivera walked into the wrong locker room when he got to the Giants park. Did you see that when he got to the stadium? Yeah. Apparently he tried to walk in the back door of the Giants locker room. People were saying, was that on purpose or not? Maybe he was trying to confront Joe Judge. What do you think, Reed?
I think that would be hilarious. It wasn't. I mean, Ron's not that kind of guy. I mean, he is, but not like he's smarter than that. You know, he wouldn't just go in there and be like, all right, I'm going to go beat him up in front of his teammates. You know, he wants to have his team. He wants to have some form of respect around the league. But no, I wish it was true. I wish that would be so funny. But I just don't see it. Ron's too much of a good dude. He's just focused on his team. He doesn't care what other teams say or think. But it makes for a hell of a story, and it would be hilarious if Ron beat him up worse than his O-line coach did.
Yeah, no, I don't think Ron said anything to him. I definitely think like you could see Ron Rivera with his bag holding, walking into like, oh, sorry. My
yeah,
bag.
It was such a dad move too. Probably opened it and was like, oh, that's not my locker room. Walked out. He probably opened the door and was like, heidi ho, neighbors, just trying to steal your game plan.
This isn't FedEx Field.
Yeah. Tried to make a dad joke out of it.
Right, Rich would be hysterical. Hall, you got anything to add?
No, I mean, you guys pretty much hit it on the head. I don't think he was going to confront him. He probably just got misconstrued and was like, oh, man, this isn't my locker room. Let me get out of here.
All right. And now let's go to our fan questions. And this one is from the Colonel himself. Thank you, Colonel. Besides DeAndre Carter, who else do we expect this to be signed that was on the bubble initially, Reed?
Oh, that was on the bubble initially. I mean, I think obviously we talked about him, but Bobby McCain is somebody who was kind of brought in a little bit later on in camp. And He's really found a niche for himself. You guys are right. He really found a role for himself. And I think he's played very well. Like you said, Kyle, when you're not hearing a defensive back's name called, usually that's a pretty good thing. And when you're only hearing his name called because of a big play, I love that. And also, little known fact here, I'm secretly rooting for Washington's new team name to be the Colonels. Okay. Just after Colonel. Yeah.
That would be hysterical. I would absolutely love that.
I'm not, guys, but for him, I would.
Obviously, it's J.D. McKissic. I think the offense really fell off after J.D. McKissic left off. And that being said, one of the bigger reasons why you'd want to bring J.D. here, J.D.'s old teammate, Mr. Russell Wilson, possibly one of the candidates that could be brought here to Washington. I know everyone and their mother's going to tell you that none of these quarterbacks are going to want to come here, but Russell Wilson is a Virginia native. He's got a old player with him in J.D. McKissic. Maybe there can be some shopping going on there, but J.D. McKissic just by himself, his work that he's done this season, the best pass catching back, the best pass blocking back as well. He is a legit weapon and mismatch on defenders. So bring back J.D. McKissic. And it's not like he's going to command a lot. Obviously, running backs are not highly sought after, especially in today's NFL. Bring back J.D. McKissic without a doubt. That has to be one guy. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone has been talked about that they're going to bring back as the people that I want to bring back. They already got the main guy that I wanted them to resign, which is Charles Leno. So, yeah.
I think Cam Sims is the big one.
Yeah, I was going to say Cam Sims, but I could also
Steven
see
Sims maybe.
Yeah, I could see Cam Sims kind of walk in, go into like another place, kind of trying to get a fresh start, maybe try to get some more playing time somewhere else just because for whatever reason they don't want to put him on the field here. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have Cam Sims back. He's definitely a great special teams guy for us too. So
yeah,
that would be definitely a big one. But as long as we can get McKissic, McCain, and obviously we already got Charles Leno, those are my top three. And like I said, if we can get Cam Sims, that would definitely sweeten the deal. But
yeah. And now Colonel's next question is pertaining to the offseason. This is going to be a big one. A lot of question marks up into the start of free agency. And this one is, will Daron Payne and Brandon Sheriff be on our team next year, Hall?
Well, I'll start with Sheriff. I'll say no to Sheriff just because I don't think they're going to pay him pretty much probably what Sheriff's going to command. I could definitely see Brandon Sheriff kind of resetting that guard market as far as the contract goes. And I don't think they were going to pay that, especially when you got a guy like Wes Schweitzer who can step in. Obviously, he's not going to be an all-pro like Brandon Sheriff, but he can definitely come in, do a serviceable job. And he's played with Rouillet, and Cosme can get a little bit of continuity with him as well, I think. So I think we'd be good at the guard spot. Obviously, you want to get a little bit more depth as well, too. But who's the second guy again?
Daron Payne.
Yeah, Daron Payne. Mm-hmm. I could definitely see them picking up his fifth-year option, but again, he could be one of those players that could be packaged into a trade deal for a quarterback or something like that. But, yeah, I know he has a fifth-year option. So if I had to pick either of the two, I would go Daron Payne just because the fifth-year option deal.
In a perfect world, Colonel, they both would be on the team next year. Brandon Sheriff would re-sign for a discounted rate. Because basically, if you were to look at the contract last season, the franchise tag, look at that as almost like an advance. Basically saying, Brandon, we have the cap space now. So how about this? How about we give you the franchise tag at 18 per this year and use that as sort of a advance for next season because now you'll re-sign and you'll take money off because you want to be a part of this offensive line. You love being here. We all saw the video of Brandon Sheriff throwing a snowball at Sam Cosme as Cosme's walking away from him, act like he didn't know where it came from. They love him. Obviously, Sam Cosme did a presser and talked about how big and important Brandon Sheriff was to his progression as a pro. And so you would love to see Brandon here, but it's all about that money because you're talking about re-signing Terry. You're talking about bringing back DeAndre Carter and these other guys. And when Brandon Sheriff were to come back, that's a big chunk of change, and you're not going to be able to re-sign any of these big-name guys if you're going to do that. So Brandon Sheriff is the big question mark, and then Daron Payne, I think Daron Payne will be on this team this season. The big question is all on Daron Payne. If Daron Payne's on this team, wants to be on this team, and is willing to work together to do that, then sure. But if Daron Payne has this kind of animosity and kind of frustrated relationship with the other defensive line and defensive line coach, I don't think there's anything you can do with it. I don't think there's a way you could bring him back based on that. So it's all based on Daron Payne in my opinion, but I would not expect either one of them to be back next year.
Yeah. I mean, you guys both kind of hit the nails on the head. I mean, it really, Yeah, it depends. In a perfect world, that would be great for Sheriff, especially. But I just don't see it happening. Like you said, our offensive line, when they were fully healthy outside of Sheriff, they really didn't miss a beat without Sheriff. Like when Wes Schweitzer got in there, they still played very well together. And I mean, if you can get that at a fraction of the cost, a similar play, then I think you kind of got to go with that. It sucks because everybody does love Sheriff, but Daron Payne, I do think he'll be here. I think that him and Jonathan Allen thing has kind of been blown up. They're friends. They've known each other forever. I think that they will end up being all right, but yeah, that's a lot of money tied up in one position group. So it'll be interesting, but ultimately I do think he's here next year. Now, the year after that, that's where it's going to be a little bit. All right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And now our next question was from Andy Burrows in the UK. Oi! And his question was, what's your take on Brandon Sheriff? Keep him or move on? He also asked, is it now crap or bust after all these years of trying to get a quarterback? Reed.
Yeah. So Brandon Sheriff, obviously, like
no. Is it crap or bust for quarterback? Are we going all out or not?
Yeah, I think we have to. I think it's boom or bust right now. You really don't have a choice. This is the biggest offseason in franchise history. I mean, you got the new name coming up, and this team is close, man. We could have been in a lot more of these games, and we could have possibly even snuck some out and won some if we got a little bit more from the quarterback position. So I think that if you really think that you're that close, and that if you look at it, man, we have the weapons to utilize. Like we really do. If we had a good quarterback, Curtis Samuel's healthy, yes, 100%. I think Ron Rivera knows that. So I think, yeah, we got to go big for a quarterback, whether it's draft or free agency.
Yeah, I think it's go big or go home, and I really truly believe that is through the veteran quarterback route. The way that Tampa Bay was able to bring in Tom Brady and elevate them to superstar status, I think that's the route that we have to go down. Based on the age of our guys now, based on Jonathan Allen, Jerome Payne, on Terry Mclaurin, Logan Thomas, guys like that, Charles Leno, and where they are in that age, you don't have a year or two to waste on a quarterback for him to be able to progress enough to be able to put you onto that level unless you go, and even Pat Mahomes, his first year was sitting behind Alex Smith. Obviously, Andy Reid knows what he's doing, and there's a reason why he kept Pat down. There's a big reason for that, and I would imagine it's because the rookie quarterback just isn't ready, and I would rather go down the vet quarterback route, and I'm always been saying go big or go home, and that's just how I am about it. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know my stance on this. I've been since pretty much after Ron Rivera's first year.
Anybody but Derek Carr, right?
No, yeah, of course. I don't want Derek Carr. Hell no. No, but I've been ever since after Ron Rivera's first year, I've been saying that I don't think he wants to go with a rookie quarterback. I think he wants to get a veteran guy that's already been established in this league and can kind of come in and kind of be the leader and guide this team and guide this offense. And obviously, I'm going to stick with that right now. So I'm going to say we definitely got to go big. I mean, everyone knows I want Derek Carr, but like I said on Twitter, I don't think that. But them going in the playoffs last night, I pretty much think that. Yeah, I think that pretty much sealed the deal for them letting him go. But again, if they want to upgrade with a guy like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers out in Las Vegas, that would shake Derek Carr loose. So that's still like my number one option is obviously Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are up there too. But yeah, I would definitely say we're going big or go home. And I want the veteran, but if you can't get the veteran, I'd be okay with, I guess, getting a rookie, but I still want the rookie to start from day one. I don't want him to sit for a little bit. I don't want him to get thrown out there and just get his feet wet from the get-go. I don't want to see any more of these bridge guys, kind of like Mitch said. I don't want to see the bridge guy thing anymore. I'm just kind of over that.
You don't want to see Mitch Trubisky? I don't want to see.
That's exactly how I react every time I see Derek Carr on my timeline.
Whoa, hey, Derek.
You just don't want to see Derek Carr. You don't want to have.
It's like looking in the mirror.
You don't want to have Craggy just like call you out and like, oh, I told you so, told you so. Otherwise, you'd be like, you'd be all in on Derek Carr.
Derek Carr's cool. I mean, the trench coat mafia king
he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, obviously. But our next question is from Tony Shivers. This is a dual banger.
Brother.
This is a dual banger right here, Hall. This one's for you. What are your thoughts on Joe Judge's surrender moves of consecutive quarterback sneaks early in the game? And also, who is your favorite draft prospect in tonight's national championship game with Alabama going against Georgia?
Well, start with the Joe Judge thing. I mean, who does the quarterback sneak thing twice? Like right then and there, you should have been like, let me get Joe Judge on the phone. I'm going to call him up real quick. All right, so, yeah, you're fired.
Right.
Meet me in the locker room. Your stuff's already packed. We have a car waiting outside for you to take you to your house. Goodbye. I don't know how he still kept his job. It's crazy. But it's good for us Washington fans because another year of dysfunction for them. Let's go. But as far as like the prospect goes, I mean, I'm a wide receiver guy. I'm an offensive guy, so I'm gonna go with Jameson Williams for Alabama. Dude's a monster. Dude's a beast. Definitely going to be a top pick coming out in this draft coming up. And I mean, if we didn't need a quarterback, I would definitely say there'd be a perfect number 11 draft pick, a wide receiver right there to complement Terry and go with Curtis Samuel. But yeah, that's my guy. Jameson Williams is my guy. I like Michi as well too, but I like Jameson better.
Yeah, with Joe Judge and those when that play calling, their hands are tied, man. They got this kid that shouldn't be playing quarterback. They're on their fourth quarterback at this point. They're just
Before
trying.
you keep going, how the hell did Jake Fromm beat out Justin Fields at Georgia? I'm still trying to figure that out to this day.
It was a name thing. It was a big name recruit when he got brought there, and he was a hometown kid. And then for whatever reason, they were like, he's older than Justin Fields, so we're gonna let him sit. He was decent in college, but yeah, Justin Fields was, compared to him, like, come on, that never made sense.
Doesn't make any sense. But he shouldn't have been on the field. And so, to their credit, why would you want to give up a pick six? I'd rather just QB sneak it twice and then punt it. They literally punted that away. They should have just punted the ball on second down at that point because there's nothing else you really want to do. But obviously they wanted the extra yardage. Can't hate him all that much. And then Evan Neal, I think the tackle from Alabama. I love that kid. I think he's a mean mauler. I'm really excited to see how he matches up against this Georgia defensive line that are just athletic bears, dude. These are gigantic grizzly bears that somehow are able to be very quick and move on the outside. So I'm really intrigued to see those matchups in tonight's game. What about you, Reed?
That's all I'll say about Joe Judge. Joe Judge, he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He means well. He's a good guy. And for draft prospect wise, I mean, you guys both hit fantastic ones. Two guys that I love, but I'm gonna keep this nice and simple. So for the 2022 NFL draft, I would go with Nakobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia. This dude is a missile. He's fantastic. He's fun to watch. He's going to be a great linebacker. He's a little undersized, but just watch the way that this guy flies around. It's incredible. But overall prospect, man, if you guys haven't been watching any of Bryce Young's film, hop on that now. This guy is so close to Russell Wilson. It's insane. I haven't seen a quarterback this accurate in a long time, but it's always tough to judge Alabama quarterbacks. And I know that's the 2023 draft at least, but because they have such good protection, they have such good targets, they have such good coaching. So it's hard to kind of get a gauge on him, but he's very fun to watch. I would not be surprised if he's the number one pick in 2023.
Accuracy is the one trait in a quarterback that always translates to the NFL. You can't get better, you can't get worse in the NFL at that point when you have it. Our next question is a rebrand question from our guy Jeff Miles in the Discord chat server. He wants to know, is it time to stop complaining about what the new name and logo will be and just accept it for what it is? He says, I know I've been a top complainer, but I think everyone here will still be supporting the team regardless on February 3rd. We could be called the Belters. He really hopes not. But if we're a winning team, nobody will care. That's more important. So is it time to stop complaining about what the new name could possibly be, Reed?
First of all, we're getting a new name. That's interesting. I didn't know that. No, yeah, I think so. Because look, like I've said from the beginning, no matter what happens, no matter what the name is, it could be something amazing. It could be something terrible. It's going to be memed to death. It's going to get destroyed on social media. It's going to get dragged through the mud. There's going to be people all over there like, it
LeBron's
took him 2 years to come up with this. LeBron's
right.
Exactly. LeBron, I guarantee LeBron is going to say, it took him 2 years to come up with this. What? Come on, man. Man, that's terrible. That's terrible. I don't know why he talks like Charles Barkley, but he does, man.
Yeah. In that case, I do want it to be Commanders because if our nickname's the Commies, I think LeBron would love it.
Oh no, yeah, then LeBron would be the biggest fan, China. But yeah, no, I think that no matter what, we can all agree if we're winning, it doesn't matter. So we'll be good no matter what. We're all going to end up adopting and liking the nickname. It might take a little bit, some people longer than others. But yeah, I think we got to pump the brakes a little bit and just wait, just relax.
And trust me, Jeff, I don't think it's like time for you guys to stop complaining about it. As long as you guys are talking about it, that's most important. The worst possible thing would just be, I don't care anymore. But you're invested into what it is, and obviously the Red Wolves movement, it got a lot of traction, and for good reason. You guys were very good at what you did, especially you, Jeff Miles. You were really, really good at being able to come up with those concepts and making it look really cool. That being said, Complaining about it, yeah, but I would say the crapping on possible names, I think is irrelevant at this point. We still got 3 weeks to go. Let's just wait and see what it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. You know, I complained about the football team. I said that people that like the football team as a name also like to eat salad without dressing. You know, it's just that's
And that's just lettuce.
right. And like that's how my view is on it. And I understand that I probably would have been one of the most complaining person if they would have said that Red Wolves wasn't taken out. I would have been like, oh, I don't want to have on. And I get it. I can't sit here and tell you can't complain about it. I totally get where you are coming from. But that being said, all I ask, Jeff, is that the Wolves and Red Wolves crowd, they just keep an open mind. And they keep an open mind and looking at it and just saying, I can still be wowed. I can still like what it is, regardless of the name, as long as the unis, as long as other stuff like that actually pops. And like the players said, like Terry Mclaurin, John Allen, and Chase Young said, they loved the uniforms. They already did a photo shoot in the new uniforms, and they said it's banging. So let's just take a deep breath. Let's wait for everything to roll out before we actually judge what's going on. What about you, Hall?
Well, I'm the opposite of Kyle. I'm going to tell you to stop complaining about it. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the complaining is going to do nothing but just get annoying, to be honest with you. It is what it is. No one wanted the name to change in the first place. Everyone knows why it did. Everyone's going to complain about the new name. There's going to be some people that love it, some people that like it, some people that hate it. You're not going to please everyone. Like everyone's been saying, and like Yo said multiple times, all we got to do is win on the field. If we come out the first year and we're the Washington Pink Sox, and they win 10, 11 games,
We're
get
all
to the
wearing
second
pink
round of the
socks.
playoffs. Exactly. Everyone's going to be rocking pink socks at the stadium. They're going to be rocking pink Sox hats. I was going to say something
Actually,
else funny,
tight.
but I'm not going to say that.
Don't. Yeah, please don't.
But nah, but seriously, though, if you can get a winner on the field, as long as we're winning on the field, we're going to be winning off the field. Get it? Like Bruce style, baby.
Yeah, I love it. Now our next question is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi.
His question is, so with it being Black Monday, do you think any of the coaches will move on and be replaced with those that are fired today? If you were in charge of the Washington football team, would you make a move, Reed?
See, that's tough because like I personally, I'm in the minority here, but I like Jack Del Rio still. I'm one of those rare people that actually still likes him. So I would like to keep him, but then like you look, and even though I think this guy should be a head coach, obviously you got somebody like Brian Flores out there. You know, that's just fantastic. Players love, and of course you would want to bring somebody like that on. I just don't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody somehow something like that does happen, but that wouldn't be Brian Flores. But yeah, I don't think it will happen. Would I do it? Probably, but I can't. So I'm just a mortal man.
I wouldn't expect Brian Flores to move in negative terms. I would think that he would move
exactly. That's what I'm
laterally
saying.
into
Right.
a head coaching position. Because Brian Flores, the problem wasn't defense. The defense was horrible when he got to Miami. He turned these guys around. He turned Xavier Howard into an actual baller of a corner, and Minka Fitzpatrick as well. He really got the defense churning. It was the offense that fell off. So for me, if I'm Minnesota, I'm looking at Brian Flores like slobbering, looking at the chance to bring him in, because the one problem with Minnesota, I know everyone likes to make fun of number 8. He wasn't the issue up in Minnesota. It was that defense. They fell off a cliff after that Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs year. They just have not been good.
Yeah.
Bring Brian Flores in. Let number 8 continue to do what he's doing with the offense and Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and then have Brian Flores come in and actually turn around that defense. But with the Washington football team, I don't think they need to be making any moves. I think Scott Turner is getting too much criticism a lot. Same with Jack Del Rio. At the end of the day, the players have to execute, and obviously it's their job to get the players on the same basis. Lots of overturning things this year, the reason for that. But I think Jack Del Rio in his presser the other day talked about this season was a revealing season, and I think I absolutely agree with him in that mindset and saying what you really got to see out of this defense when it wasn't all going well. You got to see how guys responded and clicked and stuff, and I agree with Jack to that point. But that being said, I would not make any moves, Scott. I think continue with what they're doing. There is no reason to overturn things. Let's keep it consistent and continue to build into next season. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make any changes. I guess if I was going to make a change, I wouldn't make a change just because I think that guys were kind of growing into Jack Del Rio's scheme on that second half of the season. Obviously, down the stretch of the divisional games, it didn't really seem like that, but They had a lot of people out with COVID and injuries, whatnot, blah blah blah. But I would just be big on bringing guys back for the continuity aspect of it. Some guys second year in the system, some guys third year in the system. Maybe they'll finally everything will click and they'll get back to what they did last year as far as like the top 5, top 10 rankings. But if they were to make a change and they brought in like a guy like Brian Flores to replace Jack Del Rio, like you said, I don't think he would make a backwards move. I think he would make a lateral move like Chicago or Jacksonville, maybe something like that. But I wouldn't mind. Yeah, him in Chicago would be great.
Damn, that defense.
And to your point about the defense, how it did suck when he got there, but I know rankings aren't everything, but kind of like you are what your record is, you are what your rankings are. I'm pretty sure his defenses were ranked like 28th, 30th, and then this year they jumped to 15. But at the end of the day, look who they kind of played. They were playing those kind of like us last year. They were kind of playing bad teams, backup quarterbacks, stuff like that. So I'm not going to really kill them for that.
I just think the reason for them losing was their offense. It wasn't.
Without a doubt. Offense put them in bad position all the time. But like I said, I know guys like love to play for Brian Flores. He's a younger guy. That's kind of what the NFL is moving towards, is like those younger assistants, younger head coaches type of wave. So he's just a guy that you would kind of like a Mike Tomlin type of guy. Where
I was just about to say he's like a more cool Mike Tomlin, which is hard because Tomlin's pretty cool, but he's not douchey like Tomlin. So.
So I mean, would I be happy if they made it?
I just like pissing off Pittsburgh fans.
Doesn't really move the needle for me either way. I'm not the biggest JDR fan, but he's not the worst, you know. So.
JDR. And the next question that we have is from Paul Murphy. He was encouraged. He's encouraged by the depth that we have, particularly on defense. How impressed were you, Hall, with the performances of players such as Bunmi Rotimi, James Smith-Williams, and Shaka Toney?
Yeah, we were just talking about with Mitch Tischler how Sam Mills III might be a guy that might replace on the defensive line coach. But to his point, he was getting the most out of guys that were probably practice squad players or down the line backups on a lot of other squads. So for them to lose Montez to like personal reasons and like the broken jaw, stuff like that, COVID, for him to lose Chase, for him like Jonathan Allen obviously had a career year, stepped up in a lot of ways. Jerome Payne had a really good year as well, just like the nice flashy numbers that go with the huge year. But I definitely think that Sam Mills gets the most out of him as far as like just like the rest of the coaches on the coaching staff. Really, they get the most out of their players, and that really goes back to Ron Rivera and what he kind of preaches in his coaches.
Yeah, James Smith-Williams, I thought, had a fantastic game yesterday. Shaka Toney has proven over when we needed it, when Montez Sweat was out, when Chase Young was out, came in and did well. James Smith-Williams really solidified himself as a rotational piece on this defense. I thought he was very good. And then Shaka showing where his positives and the kind of what he brings to the table and how he can produce for you, and being able to be that kind of Sam stand-up linebacker where they can move him and if he needs to go into zone coverage off his blitz packages and stuff like that. I thought he was very good in that aspect and moving laterally. Very impressed by Shaka Toney, of course. And then Bunmi Rotimi, he's one of those guys, and whenever you see his number, you're like, who is that? But then you see Rotimi, you're like, yeah, Rotimi. But I think that they stepped up big time for this defense, and they did a very, very good job. And it just builds confidence going into next season, knowing that if something were, heaven forbid, happen to Montez Sweat or Chase Young, that you have those guys in rotation. And when they're on the field, they're productive. They do well. So I am encouraged by those guys. What about you, Reed?
Yeah. James Smith-Williams, as you said, he's been super impressive. And it really makes you feel good because, like you said, Kyle, we know we have starters, but like one of the biggest things has always been like we need a good backup edge rusher just in case something happened like what happened this year.
Yep.
So that really kind of gives you some confidence going forward. Of course, you love routine me. He's just cute and fat, and you gotta like that about him. And then Shaka Khan's tight. Shaka Khan's a cool guy. I like him a lot. I really like that. He's a young buck. Of course, he's a rookie, but the fact that Shocker Toney could go out there and still make moves, use his athleticism, do a little bit of what he did in college and make some plays is really awesome. And it's only going to help him going forward. So I'm excited. Shocker Khan, baby.
And then the last question I forgot to ask, this is from Scott Harley. He wants to know what is it that each of you are looking forward to the most now that the season has finished? Is it the draft, answers at quarterback, a new name, uniforms, or free agency? He says for him, it's the schedule being released and making sure I secure the flights across the pond with Burrows and Andy. What about you, Reed?
Of course, obviously, everybody's excited about the name.
All of it.
Yeah, that's a little play. I'm most excited for just the quarterback. What we're gonna do at quarterback. That's the most important position in sports. No other position in all of sports has as much of an outcome on a game as a quarterback does, and can make the difference that a quarterback can on your roster. And I'm excited for it. We've deserved it forever. So let's just go out there and let's get a big name acquisition and let's win some football games, because the culture in the building is damn good, as Hall said.
Yes, it is. I'm most looking forward to the draft, getting back to doing some draft evals, going through these quarterbacks, looking at, because everyone is talking about all these quarterbacks. I haven't watched a lick of them because I wanted to make sure that 3 months prior that I had plenty enough time to watch all these prospects. I'm just not getting bored with boring myself to death. So without a doubt, it's the draft and being able to watch these guys like John Mechie, the wide receiver from Alabama, or Jameson Williams, looking at these playmakers early on in this draft, because I think that is something that could be really helpful to this offense. So it's the draft, without a doubt, for me, and the evals. I cannot wait to start. What about you, Hall?
I will go. My top 3 in that order. This order would be the quarterback position. I'm intrigued to see what we do, who we're going to go after, the names that are going to get thrown around, which is probably going to be
everybody,
every single quarterback that's on the list
ever played, ever.
Yeah. They might even put Shane Matthews, Brad Johnson on the list.
Joe Montana.
Secondly, I would go the new name and the uniforms. I think that's kind of got me getting me going through the rest of or not the off season, because there's still football going, but through the Washington off season, the beginning of it. And thirdly, I'll go free agency, because I think that the quarterback and free agency is going to go hand in hand. If we can get a nice quarterback in free agency, that might attract some free agent targets on the offense, which is going to help this offense grow and be bigger and better and faster. And so, yeah, those are my top 3.
Yeah, Taylor yesterday, 9 of 18 for 120 yards.
Hey, man, he's setting the mark high.
Yeah, brutal, dude. They had 12 rushing first downs and only 4 passing first downs. I mean, that was very, very bad.
But Taylor's a nice guy.
Yes.
So we can say that about him.
He has earned a spot on this team. I will tell you that right now. The biggest question mark coming into this season was if he could stay healthy for 17 games, and he showed that. He did. But my biggest question still is consistency. I needed to see consistency for him to be the starter next season. So we'll see how they play out in free agency. I trust Ron Rivera. I trust Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney and company to be able to get the right guy in here. I would go over the moon for one of the top tier quarterbacks that they've been talking about that are veterans. Over the moon, because if they were to bring that with a new name, new uniforms, and kind of just a whole rebrand and starting off fresh, I think things are really going to start turning for this Washington football team next season. Instead of just talking about question marks, we're going to be talking about exclamation points. Without a doubt.
Ooh,
guys,
put that on a t-shirt.
It's been a fantastic season. It's been a blessing, guys. I really do appreciate the both of you being able to deal with me twice a week, being able to come on here and talk. And I thought it's been a disappointing
30 minutes a week here.
It's been disappointing. It's been a disappointing year, but it's bittersweet. That's the title of this episode. I'm glad that we were able to get the victory against the Giants. I wanted the shutout, but it is what it is. I'll settle with the 7, unfortunately. But look, it was bittersweet. They ended with the victory, and it just sucks because we could have been watching last night's game with a different mindset if they would have won against Philly. But it is what it is. Not going to cry over spilled milk. Now Rivera gets to go on vacation, gets to relax for a week before things start kicking up again. And I'm really excited for Coach to be able to do that. I think he's earned that break, safe to say. All right, everybody. We will see you guys on Friday. I'm Kyle.
Friday? The season's over. What do you mean? I thought we were done.
I thought we were done.
We're not done. We're never done.
You guys...
Guess I'll see y'all Friday then.
I thought I thought about trolling everybody and saying like, "Hey guys, all right, this is gonna be the last episode until next season," just to see what people would say. But I was like, they know we're not going anywhere.
And then all of a sudden, listen, Frederick would be like, "No, we're not having you."
Right. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
I'm a huge disappointment to my family.
You don't have to say
that
it. Some stuff doesn't need to be said out loud. Okay, everybody. All right, y'all. We'll see you on Friday. Washington football. Woo!
My parents hate me.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!